action thrill, reviewing new TV shows, we keep it real, real. Reminiscing the Attitude Era, wrestling at its peak. Nostalgia from the 80s and 90s, memories we seek. Pineapples for our rings, a unique touch. Geek culture in our blood, we love it so much. Geek Blue forever, we love it so much. Geek Blue, where we talk about it all, from superheroes to wrestlers. We stand tall, Ray and Kevin, the dynamic duo in sight. Geek Blue, shining bright, shining bright. Did you hear about Pluto? That's messed up, right? Geek Blue, taking you on a nostalgia flight. From movies to TV, we cover it all. Join us every week, we'll have a ball. Shuffle.
Hey, what's going on?
Nothing.
Yeah. So, got a jam-packed show. Watched a lot of stuff. A lot of wrestling stuff, because last weekend was WrestleMania. That's what we're going to start the show off with. First of all, I want your opinion on this show that was announced. That's going to be on Netflix, called WWE Unreal, where they are breaking open kayfabe completely, and it's going to be a behind-the-scenes of the writers' room, how storylines are put on television, starring all the writers, starring Triple H, everybody. They're going to have full scenes of how WrestleMania was set up and how storylines are set up throughout the whole entire year. What are your thoughts on breaking kayfabe? We've been talking a lot about that lately, actually.
Looks interesting.
Does look interesting. I think at this point in the internet era, I mean, especially when podcasts came out, breaking kayfabe kind of was the next evolution of how wrestling was going to be in this new digital world.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there was any way to avoid it, especially when Bruce Pritchard's podcast came out. He just unloaded on everything with like 200 episodes now or more, and plus with him being in the WWE now, Triple H being a huge part of breaking kayfabe way back in the 90s with the curtain calls. So. This will be out sometime in the summer on Netflix. It'll be a part of the Netflix stuff that they do over there. So, but last weekend was WrestleMania. Started off on Friday night with the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
The big inductees were Lex Luger. If you know, there's the WrestleMania logo. If you know, in WCW back in the day, Lex Luger was huge.
I'm not saying he killed Elizabeth, but he killed Elizabeth. I mean,
there was an Elizabeth episode. Was there ever a Lex Luger episode of Dark Side of the Ring? I don't think there has.
No, there hasn't been. I assume there will be. I mean,
he
took
such a downfall
turn for the worse. Yeah,
20 years ago, this guy was as big as Hulk Hogan was back then. Huge muscles, big, huge guy.
At least he's walking again, right?
He's walking, kind of. He kind of got out of the wheelchair and stood up for his whole entire speech.
He's doing DDP yoga, I believe.
He is. Yeah.
DDP did the introduction, right?
He did. Yep.
Yeah.
They wanted Sting. AEW wouldn't allow it. That's a whole other story. CM Punk inducted the match the first time they inducted a match into the Hall of Fame, the WrestleMania 13 Stone Cold and Bret Hart match. Both of them showed up. Bret looked pissed off when Triple H shook his hand.
So did Austin. They both were just like, this guy.
I did like the statue that they gave them though. It looked really cool. They're actually selling that on WWE online for like $2,000 if you want to have that on your shelf. But Triple H, the big headliner this year, he did not want to be put in the Hall of Fame, but Stephanie McMahon and HBK made him be in it. I think that was also a thing from Vince McMahon too. I think he didn't want him in the Hall of Fame right away. But there's a lot of changes when Vince left. A lot of things happened in WrestleMania that I don't think would have happened in Vince's time in the company. But we'll get into that in a minute. But yeah, great Hall of Fame class. There's not a lot of big names left in the Hall of Fame that we grew up with. They're gonna start getting into the John Cenas and Randy Orton's, and when he starts to retire, probably this year or next. But the show itself, this is the first card for night one. There was 2 nights. This is going to be the standard going forward for WrestleMania. But the card on night one was decent. The main event was the best match of the night, best storytelling match of the night. You had Rollins, Reigns, and CM Punk in this first match ever, main eventing WrestleMania, and pulled out all the stops. You knew Paul Heyman was a snake. You knew he was probably going to turn on CM Punk. He ended up turning not only on CM Punk but on Roman Reigns, and joined forces with Seth Rollins at the end of the night, which was great. And then the Raw following, I'll talk about it now. Braun Strowger, whatever his name is, I don't remember his name.
Braun Breaker,
yeah, that's it. Braun Strowger, whatever. He also joined this faction, so that's pretty cool. They're gonna have 2 new Paul Heyman guys setting up a whole new story.
I love Braun.
Paul Heyman. Yeah, I do too. He's great. He's so fucking fast when he does his charge to do the spear. It's just ridiculous how fast he is. But that was night one. Gunther and Jey Uso was good. Jey Uso is so over. It's crazy because if this was back in 2000, I don't think we would. There's no real way to compare it. Maybe The Rock, the reaction The Rock was getting back then, but the crowd reaction to his theme song, the yeet and everything, it's just crazy. But night two, the big main event was John Cena versus Cody Rhodes. The undercard was good too. AJ Styles versus Logan Paul. The 4-way intercontinental championship match with Dominic Mysterio was great. Randy Orton. The whole mystery of this show was who was going to come out and answer the challenge to Randy Orton. And I told
his
you
name,
5 minutes.
He will appear.
That's exactly what I told you 5 minutes before. And we were like, who the hell is he going to fight? It's like, oh shit.
Yeah. So it was obvious answer.
Obvious, and this was not supposed to be the case. Kevin Owens got injured. Yeah. Triple H called him a week before and said, hey, you want to go to WrestleMania? And he thought he was kidding with him. He thought he was fucking with him, but no. He really did show up.
It sucks for
great entrance.
Owens.
Yes.
Because that match probably honestly would have been the match of the night.
You're right.
Probably.
Because Owens would have carried the fuck out of that match. Oh, yeah. And it would have been amazing. Been great. Yeah. Because I think we don't have much time for Randy Orton, especially with him setting up a match with him and John Cena, which is what happened on Raw. We don't have much more time. Speaking of John Cena, he did the impossible, the non-impossible, which we knew was going to happen. James Gunn had a whole entire beef with the WWE last week, and this was his Instagram story last week. When John Cena won the title, Mr. Peacemaker himself saying that's right. All in all, I watched every single minute. This is probably the first WrestleMania I watched both nights. I actually had time this year.
Yep.
I thought it was really good. Compared to a couple, I think last year was really good too, because that's when Cody won.
Yeah, Cody won.
The year before was when Austin had a match, which was decent, but a little too late. But this year was pretty good. Great ending to some stories, great starts to some next storylines going forward, especially from the Raw the night after.
Can we just not have it on Easter weekend? That'd be great. Thanks.
On Easter Day. That's crazy. Yeah.
I had shit to do the night before, so I didn't even get to watch the night one until like Monday or Tuesday. So
yeah. Night two was the better night as far. I mean, that last match on night one was great, but night two was the better night. We're in the wrestling mood, so I watched 2 documentaries I've been putting off for a couple of years now. First one is Andre the Giant. This is an HBO documentary came out in 2018. It's on Max now if you want to watch it. It's great, so great, and talking about his whole entire career, not only wrestling but going into the movies, Princess Bride, his friendship with referee Timmy White. I've heard about that for in so many other documentaries, but he was a big part of this as well. He was kind of the guy who wrangled him whenever Andre had to travel. Vince Sr., realizing the attraction that Andre the Giant was, took him on, and the way they said it in the documentary, they kind of hired him and rented him out to other territories before Vince McMahon Jr. took over the whole entire territory aspect of the United States. But he was definitely the attraction of the country, probably the most known wrestler in the 70s, 80s until Hulk Hogan came around. And speaking of Hulk Hogan, WrestleMania 3, the electricity of that match, which I've seen multiple times, but seeing it in a documentary like this being broken down and just realizing Andre was at the end of his life, and he kind of knew it too. He knew he was a giant. He knew he didn't have much time left in the world. So he gave Hogan this one last shot to kind of be the top guy. Kind of gave him the nod, like, here, this is what you got.
I saw this movie in 2018, so that was before I probably saw Infinity War and back when Star Wars was still going to movie theaters. So it's been a long time.
Yeah.
Is this a documentary where they talk with the Big Show, Paul White? He talks about how.
No.
Okay, because I know
that wasn't part of it.
In one documentary that he talked about how he was able to get the surgeries that just weren't available to Andre at the time to fix his like giantism and stuff like that.
They did talk about that. Andre refused to get that surgery. They did talk about that. And yeah, that's crazy because he could have lasted a few more years if he had gone through those surgeries to get that done. I was surprised to see the entire cast of The Princess Bride come into this documentary.
Yep.
Rob Reiner,
I remember that.
The director. Yeah, that came in. Billy Crystal was a part of it. Robin Wright, everybody was there, talking about Andre and how he was on the set. Of course, that is iconic. And then the documentary talked about his final days, dying in Paris or in France somewhere. And they just found him in a hotel room, which is a crazy way to see someone like that die. But yeah, right till the end, he was working. Seeing the last pictures of him that were posted, I think from a couple days before the dinner, he just looked awful. You could tell he was kind of like a walking corpse. Is what it kind of looked like to me. But great documentary about the life of Andre. I know this is WWE produced as well. This is during the network time. This is an HBO done by the guy who did Celtic City. You said right? Bill Simmons. Bill Simmons. Yeah. Yep. Great documentary, and I wanted to watch this other documentary I heard about a while ago. It was a 30 for 30 ESPN documentary.
I actually randomly watched it last night also.
Awesome.
I don't know if you mentioned that you would watch it, but I was going through 30 for 30s since I'm into those because they're fucking really good documentaries.
You told
this is like the second one I watched. Yeah, great documentary.
Yeah, very good. And talked about how he rose up to fame. Yeah, just great. The Muhammad Ali comparisons, I didn't really think about until I watched this documentary. It was like, yeah, he's got the same type of mannerisms talking to the audience as Muhammad Ali did. The Four Horsemen, we're going to talk about that in a little bit with an obituary this week. Living your gimmick. I think out of every wrestler that had a gimmick, he lived it outside of the ring more than anybody. The 10,000 women that he slept with, which is a crazy number. That's like Wilt Chamberlain numbers. Matches with the Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. Those were amazing matches. Only showed a few clips of it, but it's something I want to deep dive into more. Going into the WF in 92, I know at one of the Rumbles, right? And that was the Rumble for the title.
Yep.
That was is that one of your favorite Rumbles you've told me in the past?
That is my favorite Rumble by far.
Your favorite one. Yeah, I thought
that's
so.
That's a great Rumble. The commentary from Heenan all the way through is some of the best commentary of all time.
Yeah, I got to go back and watch that because I haven't watched it like you have.
I watch it like every year. It's like my diehard of Royal Rumbles.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. He retired at the age of 59 versus Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania. We saw that. Great match. Retired, and then he came back at TNA and ruined it. But the retirement match in WWE was so great. The way it ended was just fantastic. Reed, his son, we talked a lot about that at the end. I actually teared up at the end of this documentary, talking about Reed and how Charlotte had no ambitions to be a wrestler until Reed died, and she kind of took his place. Interesting story. Continued his dream to be a wrestler, and look where she is now, main eventing WrestleManias and everything. But great documentary. This is on ESPN Plus right now. ESPN, if you want to watch it, it's very good. Only an hour, maybe less than an hour.
That's a good thing about the 30 for 30s, or they're like an hour 20 max. The other one I watched last night because it was on draft day was the one about Dan Marino and the 83 draft. I And that's a really good one. Elway to Marino, it's called. Elway was picked first. Marino was picked last in the first round, and they had the same agent. So, like, the agent was going back and forth trying to represent both of them at the same time, trying to get them both in the right spot. Very good documentary. I love all the 30 for 30s. They're all, like I said, hour 20. They're all excellent. So, definitely recommend the Nature Boy one.
Yeah, very good. Yep. Dark Side of the Rings, getting the last thing of wrestling for the week. Episode on superstar Billy Graham. Had no idea about this guy. Had no idea that Hulk Hogan ripped his whole entire persona, moveset, everything. Hulk Hogan was superstar
Hulk
Billy
Hogan,
Graham 10
basically,
years later.
Billy Graham came 10 years too early because he would have been Hulk Hogan. It was weird, though, listening to Jericho do this documentary, even though they never brought up that whole situation with Billy Graham and Jericho, but Billy Graham went on like an epic rant in like 2007 about how Jericho's like the most overrated wrestler of all time. It was pretty insane.
I had no idea. I had no idea. That's funny that he did that.
I'll see if I can find it, send it to you, but yeah.
This is a great episode. We're halfway through this series. I can't remember what's next week, but we'll talk about it at the end of the show. I do have it written down. Have you started Mobland yet?
No, I think I might wait for it all to be out, or I'll watch some this weekend.
Yeah, we're about halfway through episode 4. Very good. I'm not going to get into it too much, but very good show starring Tom Hardy, Pierce Brosnan, Helen Mirren. Very, very good. The Studio, another great show. This is on Apple TV every Tuesday night, Wednesday. Very good. Seth Rogen, his writing partner, Evan Goldberg. I think they wrote and directed.
How many episodes are left? 3?
3, I think. Yeah, maybe less. Okay. I don't know. I think Apple stays with between.
We haven't gotten Zack Snyder's episode yet, though. I don't think so.
No.
Looking forward to that.
Yep. This week had Johnny Knoxville.
Yes, that's right. Johnny Knoxville was in it. Yeah, that was a good episode.
And the episode that everybody's been talking about of television this week, which we're going to get into heavily. Spoiler: if you don't know, and haven't seen this episode yet, you're waiting for the series to air. Oh, there is a big spoiler in this episode of a character that is not returning ever again. Maybe in a flashback, but The Last of Us season 2, episode 2 is where it happened, and Pedro Pascal has left the show.
Pedro has left the building.
In close fashion to what happened in the game, as far as show to game comparison. I have seen the comparison videos. I didn't play the game, but I have seen the comparison. The only difference that I noticed was instead of batting his head in with the golf club, she stabbed him through the neck with it. That way it was a definitive ending to his character.
2 big differences going forward is that it's Dina was there with him instead of his brother.
Okay.
In the game, it's his brother. And it drives his own... I don't know. I guess it's going to be weird how they play it because, like, with his brother being there, his brother has to carry around the guilt of not being able to stop it. Versus Dina. And I'm not going to go into what happens after this, so we'll talk about it probably next week as far as why Dina might be there instead. Because I want a future spoiler for you. But yeah, that to me was the biggest thing. And I did enjoy, though, the fact they showed what they did is they took Tommy and they made him do the whole like saving of the town.
Yeah, was that part of the game at the same time? Okay,
no, because like I said, Tommy was with Joel. That never happened in the game. The zombies are chasing them as they get to Abby's place in the game. Where in the show they did it, the zombies went and attacked the Jackson Hole town.
They came out of the snow the same way and everything. Yep. They were like hidden under the zombies. That was a really cool touch. I like that. Great episode, great show. This is on Sunday nights.
And they showed
not seen any.
The other thing too about his death is they show a lot more in the show. In the game, it's literally You also don't know. This is what's kind of pissing me off. Is in the game, one of the driving forces was you don't know Abby's motivation, and there was way too much exposition in this episode about that to me. I think it would have been better going forward if you just didn't know anything. Yeah, which has been an issue since the first episode of this show. But yeah, it was much more brutal in the show, where the game is literally she hits him once, and then you take over as what's her name, and then you find them, and he's pretty much dead, and then she hits him one more time.
Okay. Yeah, I know the show has to explain a little bit more than the game does. Game you're playing through whole episodes and series of events. But yeah, great show. Sunday nights if you want to watch it. We had a debut premiere episode, 3 episodes of Andor. Each week for the next 4 weeks is going to be tackling a year in the life of Andor. Going into Rogue One is where the 4th week's going to lead up to. But the first 3 episodes aired this week. Great return to the series. The only thing that I'm going to say is, when did Star Wars get very rapey? I know that's a contention for a lot of people now.
I have no problem with it because that stuff happens during rebellions.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's been a lot of Star Wars people, YouTubers that have an issue with this. And it's the same people that just want to bitch about Disney and what they're doing. They complain when Disney doesn't give us good product. And then when they give us a good product, they find something else to complain within that good product. So this show's fucking fantastic. I have no problem with the rape scene.
Visually great. The whole beginning scene when he steals a TIE fighter was fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
And then this whole 3rd episode was so much tension with, I can't remember her name. It's like a 3-letter word. I can't remember her name, but she's kind of in cahoots with Andor.
Yeah.
And she's on this farming area, planet or somewhere. But she gets attacked by one of the officers from the Empire, and it's crazy how they depicted it. I don't know if George Lucas would have done that 10, 20 years ago. I don't think he would have. I think he was more this is for kids type of thing. But they're making it for adults. The people who grew up with Star Wars, this is what this is for, pretty much. So, so next week we'll talk about Chapter 2, episodes 4 through 6. Comes out on Wednesday. We'll talk about that then. Penultimate episode of Celtic City, talking about the 2000s into the 2008 championship, where they actually became world champions for the first time in 16 years? Longer than that. 20 years. 22 years.
86 to 08. So 22 years. Yeah.
Yep. Great episode. Talked about the Paul Pierce stabbing that they left off with the episode before. Rebounding from that, pun intended. You wrote this. I don't know what this is. Why Wick Grossbeck? He's the guy that bought the team, right?
Yes, they talked about Wick buying the team. A lot of people think Wick is like the main owner. He's not. I think he only owned like 6 to 10%. But when you buy a major team like this, you need somebody that the league can back, so to speak. And Wick was from the area. He was a very well-known businessman in the area, so he was kind of the figurehead for the ownership that bought them, because they wanted a local guy to be a part of it. And that's why they interview Wick, and like he's kind of made out to be like the big owner when he really actually owns less than a lot of the other owners as far as his stake in the team. I just wanted to bring that up.
Talked about Doc Rivers, who was the coaching force behind the winning team. The coach. 2006. Rest in peace to Red Auerbach. This whole series was all about Red up until 2006 when he passed. Big huge loss. They dedicated the championship they won to him. And after he died, they kind of started going to a rebuilding process for the Celtics. They hired Kevin Garnett, Ray Allen, who we just talked about when we were doing basketball movies with He Got Game. He started in that. I think that's where he debuted.
Yeah.
When we talked about He Got Game, he debuted in the movie, but he was drafted in like the Supersonics or one team.
He was drafted. Yes. I think he was
rookie year. Maybe.
I think he filmed the movie before his rookie year or after his rookie year. It might've been the year after his rookie year, but it was around that time. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, so he was a huge part of the new Big Three, is what they were building, between him, Pierce, and Kevin Garnett.
Yep.
Kevin Garnett, I had no idea about. This is all new stuff to me. This is all stuff that you've known for years. Kevin Garnett, such a life force of this team back then.
Yep.
Ubuntu.
Yep.
Big, huge thing that they used to say.
Yep.
Rondo. I've always heard that name. I've seen the jersey with Rondo. Celtics versus the Lakers for a new era in the 2008 World Championship, and they won that, beat the Lakers and Kobe. Great to see that. We just so much of this stuff is going back to the winning time and everything that we've been watching in the last 2 months now since this documentary first premiered. But next week is the finale. getting into the new era that's current. With I know you've been talking a lot about
Tatum,
the
Brown,
coach.
and Mazzulla.
Yeah,
my god.
Yeah.
I hope they have some good stuff on Mazzulla because that guy is a fucking lunatic. I love him.
Yep. We're going to talk all about that next week, the current teams. That's great. Clubhouse, second part. This came out. This is on Netflix. We watched the first part last week. This is the second part. Durant putting him into the All-Star game. That was a great moment for him. I think it's the second episode that we watched was all about the trade deadline, and they're talking about the AAA teams, and the Sea Dogs were a big part of the beginning of the episode. Tyler O'Neill, I thought he was a great player. He got traded at the end of the year, because the team did not do great. They didn't even make the wild card. And Durant had a huge controversy as well, calling one of the fans in the crowd the F word, not the fuck word, the other one. But yeah, I think he got suspended for like two games. I remember after I watched it, I remember that happening.
And his post when he came back, he wore a shirt with the Red Sox logo on it, but it just said "fuck your feelings." He did a post-game interview after he came back from his suspension.
I like that. I like that guy a lot, not because of that, but I just like his story.
Yeah,
his mental
he's an interesting character.
Yeah. But next week, I know that's it. That's it for that. That was the finale of that.
Yeah,
the team was not good. Now we'll talk about it a little bit because we haven't talked about the current Red Sox this year. Do you think the team has turned around in the offseason? I know they did some trades. They did get rid of O'Neill.
Yeah, I mean,
brought some guys in. They are better. Okay,
they're better for sure.
Team. Because going into this, the team did not look. No. It did not look as fluid as it did back when I used to watch 20, 30 years ago.
Right.
But, speaking of baseball, speaking of Red Sox baseball, the last movie for baseball this month is going to be The Babe. Came out in 1992, starring John Goodman. Never watched this movie, but talked about his whole entire life story and becoming the leader of the New York Yankees, pretty much, and that's where everybody knows him from. I'm not sure how great John Goodman did because I don't know much about Babe other than he was kind of a drunkard. But to me, it did seem that he played the role well. Talked a lot about womanizing and alcoholism and all that. So, I thought it was a great movie.
It's very good.
Right during the rise of Roseanne, so he was just right in the thick of it. So, great movie. We're going to get into the year of Superman this week. It's going to be very heavy because there's 3 movies I want to talk about, kind of all in one pitch. But first, we're going to talk about a comic book. You recommended this to me a couple months ago, Luther.
Yep.
Originally called Luther Man of Steel, 5 issues, came out in 2005, I believe I have written here. But those are the 5 issues on the right there on the covers for them, and that's the graphic novel issue on the left there. But talking through a lens of Lex Luthor for the first time, actually seeing through his eyes, how he sees Superman in the world, kind of as not just a menace, but menace, I guess, an alien menace that he wants to kind of protect the world from.
Yeah, somebody that can't be controlled.
Right, everything he kind of wants to do for good in his eyes. That's kind of what the comic book kind of made me think of. There was, as you can see in the cover there for issue 3, there was a Batman Bruce Wayne cameo, where he tries to sell him kryptonite. It's kind of a crazy story, where with him, he also creates a robot being that's kind of, I think her name is Hope, and she kind of tries to take over the Superman mantle with her.
Yeah,
weird, to kind of create and control that. But good story. Not the best comic book I've read. No. 5 issues, very quick. But
it's very quick read. Yeah, it's a good one.
Very quick. I think, like you mentioned to me, it took me like an hour to read.
Yeah.
But, and this leads us up to this kind of the end of the 80s, and what happened. The big question is, what happened to Christopher Reeve's Superman after Superman 2? Why did those movies fail? Why wasn't there a movie again until 2006? And why did it go right straight to television after this? And that's pretty much what we're going to talk about this week and how the Salkinds kind of fucked up everything. Starting with Superman 3, we talked about Richard Donner distancing himself completely, and Richard Lester came in for the second movie, and he came in to direct the third one as well. The biggest movie star in the comedy world at the time was Richard Pryor. Richard Pryor went on the Tonight Show one time, talked to Johnny Carson, and told him in an open call to Warner Brothers and the Salkinds, hey, hire me for Superman. Kind of in a joking manner. The Salkinds did not take it as a joke. They called him up immediately and hired him to be in Superman 3. And that's the poster for it. That's Superman saving Richard Pryor over the Grand Canyon, flying with him. But, Richard Lester directed it, like I mentioned. It was very goofy, slapstick, a parody of the movies that came before, especially the opening segment in Metropolis, which was Superman going through this slapstick comedy that's reminiscent of like Leslie Nielsen in the Naked Gun movies. There's so many accidents happening, so many crazy scenes happening in Metropolis in the first 5-10 minutes of the movie. And yeah, Richard Pryor working alongside Christopher Reeves. Richard Pryor as Gus Gorman. He was paid $5 million to be in this movie.
Money well spent.
Yes. This came out in 1983. At one point, Superman stops a nuclear meltdown by freezing a frozen lake and taking the lake and lifting it and putting it onto the nuclear meltdown to cool it down. The show's Clark back in Smallville meeting Lana Lang, who's played by Annette O'Toole, who was Martha in Smallville. She came back 15 years later for that. 17 years later. Rounding up, this movie is all about rounding up the change and taking that change. That's Richard Pryor's great idea, which ended up being a part of Office Space. They actually mentioned Superman 3 by name.
Yep, they do.
Plot of that movie. And yeah, Richard Pryor ends up finding this change, and he adds up too much of it and ends up having like a check for $20,000 and gets in trouble for it. But that was the big plot point of this. The bad guy there is I can't remember his name, Robert Vaughn, which you've seen in all those commercials back in the day for the insurance. I can't remember who the insurance guy was, but most of the cast returned. Margot Kidder cameoed. Gene Hackman, who we talked about before, did not come back for this movie because he did not like the Salkinds and Richard Lester. Robert Vaughn is the main villain. He uses Richard Pryor's computer savviness to reprogram a weather satellite to manipulate the weather in the movie. Aaron Smolinski, who played the young Clark Kent, the Superman penis in the first movie, he cameoed in this as a kid in the photo booth with Superman. That's him right there, a few years older. Let's see what else I want to talk about. In this movie, the big plot point is Gus creates a kryptonite knockoff by kind of trying to find out what kryptonite is made of, but he doesn't know the missing ingredient. He's smoking a pack of cigarettes, and on the ingredients on the cigarettes, he sees tar. So the missing ingredients he just puts in the computer is tar. And that's what creates the personality evil Superman split in this movie. And that's basically what the main story at the end of this movie is about, is Superman becomes evil with this kryptonite. It looks like kryptonite, but it's made with tar. It's nuts. And that's evil Superman sitting in a bar drinking whiskey or something. And Christopher Reeves let his beard grow, so he's got a 5 o'clock shadow. He takes the Leaning Tower of Pisa and he straightens it out. That's his evilness in this movie. And then in this weird scene, there's no explanation of why it happens, but Clark Kent separates from his body and ends up having a fight in a junkyard with Superman to the death. And the end of it, Clark Kent wins out and evil Superman dies and Clark Kent becomes Superman again. Very, very strange. There's no plot to this movie. There's no sense to this movie. It just happens. This is the third movie. The final boss, this movie was supposed to be a Brainiac movie. We're going to get into that in a minute. But this is the half computer, half woman cyborg that we get the very last 5 minutes of the movie, played by Robert Vaughn's sister. It's a weird fucking plot point, but Superman saves the day, destroys the computer, arrests Robert Vaughn's character, and for some reason does not arrest Richard Pryor, who is the criminal mastermind of this whole entire project. He puts him into like the workforce. Very strange plot point of this movie, but
yeah,
$39 million budget, made $80.2 million, so he made double the budget back for that time. Richard Donner confirmed decades later that he'd be interested in writing at least 2 more Superman films, which he intended his writing partner Tom Mankiewicz to direct. Brainiac was going to be the villain of the 3rd movie. It would have changed this whole entire story completely. And I think they were always, I think Salkinds were always having a hard on for Brainiac. And we're going to get into that in a second here. But in 1980, the Salkinds wrote a treatment for a film that included Brainiac, Mr. Mxyzptlk, and Supergirl. The treatment was released in 2007. I had no idea about this. There's actually I think it's a 3-hour video of this whole reading of this script of what this could have been. A Superman 3 written by Salkind, and he wrote the whole entire treatment for this. Mr. Mxyzptlk was portrayed in outline as a kind of different from his counterpart in the comics. He was more his abilities caused chaos. Dudley Moore was the first choice to play the role. Brainiac was in the movie. This is the strangest part of it. Brainiac was going to be the adopted father of Supergirl, kind of like the Kents to Clark. However, the script found him falling in love with Supergirl, his daughter. She didn't reciprocate. She didn't reciprocate the feelings because she had fallen in love with her cousin Superman. Supergirl and Superman would eventually have married in the 4th film. The climax would have used time travel to the climax would have used time travel to bring back the fight into the Middle Ages with Brainiac. Superman and Supergirl would have defeated him and left Brainiac lost in the past. I don't know how that would have happened with time travel mechanics. The studio quickly rejected this idea because it was complex and the budget would have been astronomically high in 1980s standards. So that did not happen. We got Superman 3, Richard Pryor, blah, blah, blah. You know, the rest of the history. We're going to talk about in a minute, the rest of the history. But it was originally intended to be titled Superman versus Superman. They were being sued by the producers of Kramer versus Kramer, which is a big movie at the time. So they had to change it to Superman 3. At this point, the movie did not do well. Not as well as they hoped it would be, not as well as the first 2 movies. So at this point, the Salkinds were questioning the sale of Superman rights due to the high budget needed to produce these movies. But before they did, they already had another movie in production. And that was Supergirl. Oh boy. This is a hard watch. And I watched it this week just to talk about it briefly. But Helen Slater coming in as Kara, I believe she was in a lot of the stuff later on. She was in Smallville, and I think she was in the Arrowverse too. I think she was Kara's mother in Arrowverse. I can't remember. I know. Yeah. Mia Farrow, Faye Dunaway, Peter O'Toole. You're talking about 3 iconic names, actors in this movie. And a cameo from Mark McClure, who played Jimmy Olsen. He had a cameo in this movie as well. Directed by a French director, Genet Chouard. I don't know his name. But he directed Somewhere in Time, and he also directed Jaws 2. We just talked about him a few months ago. Original plot was a rescue mission where Supergirl had to save Superman. But after Christopher Reeves read the script, he abruptly left the picture early on, causing them to rewrite the whole entire thing and hopefully refresh the franchise. Set in Argo City in the beginning. Argo City is compared to the city of Kandor, the 2 surviving cities of Krypton. Argo City was kind of like it's kind of a weird history. Argo City was a bubble that came off of Krypton, kind of like a little asteroid, but everything in the city survived, including the people, including the city itself. Where Kandor was a shrunken city stolen by Brainiac, Argo City was kind of lost in space. After the failure of Superman 3, the studio eventually relinquished the distribution rights, and TriStar Films was actually the ones who released this film. The budget was $35 million. Looked horrible for that much money. only made $14.3 million. So huge failure. In 1980 standards, that's huge failure. And the failure led to the Salkinds selling their Superman rights finally to a B movie studio called the Cannon Group in 1986. They sold it for $5 million. Wow. So the next movie was not released. I think it was distributed by Warner Brothers because they still owned the character.
Right.
But the Cannon Group released Superman 4: The Quest for Peace. This came out in 1987. Oh boy. But the Salkinds kind of had no part of it. Richard Lester didn't want anything to do with it. So they brought back Gene Hackman and Margot Kidder came back. They brought in John Cryer to play Lex Luthor's cousin or nephew or something.
I think he's a nephew, yeah.
Mariel Hemingway, she was kind of the love interest. She took over the Daily Planet, and it's kind of a weird story. Got some pictures from it here. I'll pick a couple of them there, but yeah, they tried to replicate the scene with Lois and Superman in her apartment. That's John Cryer right out of Pretty in Pink. I think a couple years after that, and that's him with his uncle Lex Luthor. Not a good movie. Not a great movie. Not even the word. Oh my God. This right here. Let's talk about this. Number one, Christopher Reeves wanted creative control, and the big thing that he wanted was in exchange to return for not only a large amount of money, he got paid a ton of money to be in this, but he wanted creative control, and most notably, he wanted to put this nuclear disarmament story into this movie. That's why in the movie he goes in front of the world leaders and tells them, "I'm going to go to every country and I'm going to steal all of their nuclear weapons, their rockets, and I'm going to destroy them all." The picture on the top right there is all of the nuclear weapons from the world put into a net in space, and he ends up flinging it into the sun. The problem with that is it creates the villain of the movie, which we'll get into in a minute, but oh boy. And the picture on the left there, I'm going to talk about it right now. Mariel Hemingway gets stolen by the villain of the movie, and that's Superman saving her. She is full out in space, flying around in space off of the world, breathing just fine, no problem. That's an actual picture from the movie of her flying through space with Superman. Wes Craven was originally hired by Cannon Films to direct this film.
Interesting choice.
What did Wes Craven do before this? This is 1987.
He was still doing softcore or hardcore. Like at that point, he had done Last House on the Left.
Okay.
When did this come out? 87? So he would have already done two Nightmares.
Yep.
He was still a horror director at the time.
Yep. That was their original choice. But he and Christopher Reeves did not get along, and Reeves demanded that a new director be brought in. That's why we didn't get a Wes Craven Superman movie. Reeves directed some of the second unit shots, but he was deemed too inexperienced to take on the full director's duty. And due to the Cannon Group having huge financial issues before production even kicked off, major budget cuts took place in the middle of production. It was originally budgeted for $35 million. During production, it was cut in half to $17 million, right in the middle of production. 45 minutes of the films were deleted and lost due to the poor screenings of this. And the villain of the movie was a clone created from a hair strain of Superman that was in a museum that Lex Luthor stole. And he created a clone using that and a whole bunch of other stuff and nuclear power. And when he sent these nukes off into the sun, it created Nuclear Man. Just gonna let it breathe on that for a few minutes.
Was this guy a failed pro wrestler or something?
I don't know who he is because he wasn't even in the cast credits. The voice was done by Gene Hackman. Gene Hackman did the voice of him because in the movie, if you've seen the movie, He's kind of like the father of him, and he created him. So it's kind of like Lex Luthor being the superhero, but it's kind of the amalgam, yeah, whatever of that. Yeah, that's them fighting on the moon. Not good. Box office was originally I was 36.7 million, so it made double of what I mean, but from standards of what this movie was, the critics just did not like it. Nobody likes it. It's the film that killed the theatrical movies until 2006. It's what Christopher Reeves just left it. Everybody's like, oh, this movie sucks.
He was originally supposed to do the 5th one and direct it, I believe. They were talking.
I have it.
Getting ready for that, right?
I have it right here.
Okay.
Christopher Reeves got in his accident in mid-90s, but he was always talking about Superman 5. And it was originally going to be called Superman Reborn. It's going to bring it back. The Salkinds ended up buying the Superman rights back after this movie failed. And then the Cannon Group went into bankruptcy. The Salkinds bought the franchise back. But they didn't get the proper pieces together before Christopher Reeve's horse riding accident. And that's why this movie didn't happen. But it would have shown the death of Superman and resurrection way before the comic book story happened. And the main setting was going to be in the bottled Kryptonian city of Kandor. It would have given a proper fitting ending to the character. Brainiac would have been the villain, and Christopher Reeves and Margot Kidder had shown interest. Christopher Reeves was talking about it in a lot of interviews before. He was doing like interviews on TV and interviews with fan conventions and stuff, talking about this and how it failed. And this is before his accident, but yeah, what could have been? It could have been a great fitting ending to him and the character, but I don't know. With the Salkinds being back in charge, I'm not sure. I don't have a lot of faith in them, so I'm not sure what that would have been in 1990s standards. But yeah, what a weird ending to such a great. Where it started in the 70s, 1978, and in 1980 when they did Superman 2, even though the directors changed, it was still a decent movie. The Donner cut's better, but kind of a weird ending to Christopher Reeves, but. So that's it for the 80s. Next month, we're going to talk about Superboy, the series. We're also going to talk about Lois and Clark, The New Adventures of Superman. But the big comic book read next month is going to be The Death of Superman. I wanted to bring that up because I know you're going back to work, and if you have to read that to get into it. But yeah, Death of Superman, the big, huge event that happened, and everybody from Time Magazine to New York Times, everybody was talking about it because they killed Superman. With Doomsday. We'll talk all about that next month. But with that being said, let's get into the news. And it's not a news segment, but a trailer roundup. Got a new trailer for Wednesday coming out on Netflix sometime this year. I believe it's July. I got the dates here. Yeah, August 6th for part 1. September 3rd for part 2. I like the first season, so I'm looking forward to this on Netflix. Got finally the trailer for this Pee Wee Herman documentary where he comes out as gay, in the most unknown history of this character ever. But 2-part documentary coming out on May 23rd on Max, called Pee Wee as Himself. The trailer looked great, and I cannot wait to watch this. I love documentaries like this. I like Pee Wee Herman growing up, so I'm interested in this. Got the new trailer for I Know What You Did Last Summer. This comes out July 18th. It gives me a couple months to watch these 2 movies prior. So I had no idea what I was watching other than seeing Freddie Prinze Jr. for the first time in 20 years.
Yeah.
And what's her name? Jennifer Love Hewitt. But Earth Day was this week. We got 2 new posters and a little teaser for Alien Earth. Comes out this summer on FX. Looked great. Didn't see much of it other than the alien being born on Earth, as you can see in the first poster, and the alien eating Earth in the second poster. But all alien all the time. We got the Predator Badlands trailer finally, which looked fantastic.
Yeah, it does.
It looks really good, and seeing the Predator being an alien, also seeing Elle Fanning as an android that works for the Weyland Company. Interesting. So it is connected to the Alien universe. Kind of maybe hinting that maybe there could be an Alien versus Predator part of this somewhere in the future. But yeah, it looked really, really cool. I liked it a lot. This trailer kind of surprised me this week. Comes out July 2nd on Amazon, I believe, maybe in theaters too. starring Idris Elba, John Cena, Jack Quaid, heads of state. John Cena plays a president. Idris Elba is kind of his Secret Service agent that protects him. Jack Quaid is somebody. I don't know who he is in the movie really, but he has got a gun. I like that picture that I put in there. But yeah, it comes out on July 2nd. Gonna be in the theaters. PG-13. So yeah, we'll have to wait and see. Weekend box office last week. Sinners, great movie. 45 million. The Minecraft movie made another 41 million. Kings of Kings, the animated Easter movie, 17 million. We didn't talk about this. The Amateur, 7 million. This is the new movie with Rami Malek. Looked pretty good in the trailers that I saw a few months ago. It's made 7 million. And Warfare made 4.8, which was good too. Rest in peace to Mongo McMichael. I don't know. You probably know him more as a wrestler like I do, because you weren't alive with when he was playing for the Bears,
right?
But, I remember him from WCW. I was watching WCW heavily at the time. Big part of the Horsemen back then, along with Chris Benoit, which I don't have the picture of him there. I have the one with Malenko. But yeah, Mongo, huge part of WCW. I know a lot of people know him from his time at the Bears, but I knew him from WCW. But yeah, rest in peace to him. He had ALS at the end of his life. He was very frail. I don't think he could even move or talk or anything. He was bedridden. And it sucks that a lot of wrestlers went and visited him and posted all their pictures with him online, because he looked really, really bad at the end. But rest in peace to him. I'm going to get your take on this. Ted Sarandos talked this week about movies in Hollywood and going to theaters, saying that the streamer is saving Hollywood and believes that theater going is an outmodeled idea for most people. In other words, why go to the movies if you can go to see it at home? People are buying bigger TVs, having louder speakers, being able to see this stuff at home.
Which is funny. This came out the same week that we had an episode of
yes,
that TV show there that we just talked about, the studio, that basically tackled this idea.
The exact same week,
which is pretty funny. But yeah, fuck this guy. If saving Hollywood is giving directors $100 billion more than they need to make a movie, and then it getting a 20% on Rotten Tomatoes is saving Hollywood, I don't know what to tell you. They Netflix has some good content, but it's like 25% of it as far as movies go.
They throw money at everything.
They literally
they have no like quality control. It's all just throw.
Yep.
But people watch that shit, and that's what they're looking for. And they make more money than any other media conglomerate right now. You're talking 220 million subscribers, paying an average of probably $12 a month. You add that up a monthly, what they're making in the billions every year, it's ridiculous. I don't know what they put into content, probably at least 50 billion, you would think, but yeah. In weird news, they're creating a Toys R Us movie, kind of on the lines of Night at the Museum, set in the 80s. It's gonna be live action, kind of like they're saying Night at the Museum, Back to the Future, big, where Toy Store kind of comes to life. Inspired by Jumanji and Barbie and all this other stuff, but I don't. Other than that, don't know much more about it. I love Toys R Us. So I probably would watch this if it's nostalgia based. But yeah, I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. Got new posters for John Wick, spin-off Ballerina with John Wick and Anna de Armas. Comes out June 6th. I cannot wait for that. I did like those John Wick movies. I liked her character briefly when we saw her in John Wick 2, so cannot wait. Coming right out of the studio, we just talked about it. Bill Hader is going to co-write and potentially star in the Jonestown series in development at HBO.
Yeah.
If they don't call it Kool-Aid, they're missing out on an opportunity here. Studio just tackled this 2 weeks ago. It's kind of crazy. Speaking of TV shows that are going to be in the works, The Holdovers, we just watched at Christmas time, is going to be a show based on that's going to be in the works.
I love that movie.
That's all we know about it so far. But yeah, came out in Variety this week. Got the first picture of Malcolm in the Middle cast returning to production this week or last week. Malcolm and his parents, of course, Bryan Cranston. Announced this week, Fortnite, Star Wars Galactic Battle. Going to be a brand new map showing up on Fortnite with a whole bunch of Star Wars inspired portions of the map. You got pictures of that right there. You got Tatooine inspired, you got Hoth inspired. So yeah, don't play Fortnite. I've got into it a little bit, but it's not for me. Not my.
Yeah,
I'm not
same.
a fan of fighters. The Nintendo Switch release, Switch 2, came out yesterday to a lot of problems. If you tried to pre-order it, you probably didn't get it. A lot of sites were down. A lot of sites sold out in minutes. They were asking a lot of money for this system, for a Nintendo system, more than any other Nintendo system prior. But Nintendo released a new commercial with Paul Rudd, reprising his role from the Super Nintendo commercial from the 90s, looking exactly the same because Paul Rudd doesn't age. But yeah, I wouldn't say that. This was announced today. I don't know anything about Split Fiction, but it's a movie adaptation. And Sydney Sweeney was signed on to star as it as the main character. Directed by Wicked director John M. Chu. Nothing. I don't know anything about it. A lot of people are not liking that John Chu is directing it.
Right. Yeah, I don't really know anything about it. It sounds like an interesting idea for a movie, so we'll see.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see. Jesse Plemons has been cast as Plutarch Heavensbee in the Hunger Games: Sunrise of the Reaping. That character was originally played by Philip Seymour Hoffman in the original Hunger Games movie. I like Jesse Plemons. Speaking of Jesse Plemons, I wanted to bring this up when we talk about Star Wars. 5 major actors have reportedly turned down offers to star in Sean Levy's Star Wars Starfighter movie. The one that we heard about last week was Mickey Madsen. She was going to be a villain. Jodie Comer, Jesse Plemons is one of them. Greta Lee and Sarah Snook. She's going to be the main character's mother. The only thing I heard this week about this movie was that Ryan Gosling was going to be, it wasn't his son, it was like his nephew or something.
His nephew or cousin or something, yeah.
Yeah, something like that.
He's going to take him on as a Padawan or something.
Yeah, that's what I heard. Yeah. But yeah, we'll have to wait and see on that. Didn't mention this with the Darth Maul animated series, but this is the main character of that series. It's going to be a apprentice to Darth Maul, a female apprentice. The original idea was created by George Lucas, and Maul's going to be training his apprentice. And if George Lucas had done his sequel trilogy, this character would have been one of the villains of the movie. So, yeah, Dave Filoni is writing that, and I think it's going to be airing soon. I don't know really when, but speaking of Dave Filoni, he's wrote all episodes of Ahsoka season 2. I think they began filming this week. Anakin Skywalker is going to officially return. Rory McCann took over the role of Balin Skoll after Ray Stevenson died. I do have a picture of him here in character. Looked really, really cool. Got some first look at concept art for Ahsoka season 2. Admiral Akbar also returning to Ahsoka season 2. He's going to be going head to head with Admiral Thrawn. And they announced that Celebration is coming back in 2 years to Los Angeles, right around the time the new movies start coming out again in April of 2027. So it's going to be stateside again. Kind of weird they were in Japan, but yeah, that was the end of Celebration. So let's talk about some swag that was announced this week.
Swag. Stuff we all get.
Come on, son. You know that's right.
Brand new McFarlane figure. We're getting it again probably in the next month. We're going to be getting a lot of new merchandise for the new Superman movie. And this is one of them. This is a statue of Superman, David Cornsweet Superman from Superman. Looked really, really cool. We also got a tease of what the Hot Toys Superman figure is going to look like. This is all they've released so far, but I'm sure we're going to get this probably in the coming weeks as well. Speaking of Superman, Supergirl in production. David Krumholtz, I believe he's playing Kara's father, Earthbound father, I think. I'm not really sure. But he posted this on Instagram, a new logo for Supergirl. Speaking of Supergirl, this is a real video. I actually did see this one. Lobo fighting. Very grainy, but I do have a shot there on the bottom of Lobo. Still not a clear view of what he's going to look like. Either Supergirl as well, but Very excited for this movie. Cannot wait for it next year. And Paul Ben Victors. If you saw Entourage, he's been in a lot of stuff.
I was gonna say he's the classical, like, oh, I know that guy. He's been in 1,000 things. I just don't know his name. He's the classic.
He's kind of that Italian, the kind of Italian mobster type of guy. He joined the cast of Lanterns. He's gonna be playing a character called Anton, an extraterrestrial and devoted to exposing the truth and exacting vengeance against those who wronged his people. The rumor that he's playing the leader of the Red Lanterns. Did you see that?
Yes.
And this is all a ploy to get the fans to not see that yet, but that's what the rumor is. Garrett Dillahunt. I'm only going to bring this up briefly because it was debunked, but he posted this picture on the internet.
I thought it was pretty funny.
It was, and everybody thought, "Oh my God, is he playing Green Arrow in Green Lantern?" Not the case. James Gunn actually went on there and said, "No, that's not going to happen." But I think he was on Instagram today too, talking about he didn't mean to get the fans up in an uproar. He was just joking around. It was like a Halloween costume from back in the day.
Yeah.
But he's a huge comic book fan, so understandably. I want to mention this too. This comic book looks really, really cool. Predator kills the Marvel Universe. It's gonna be, I think, a four-issue series where Predator kills every single character of the Marvel Universe. Kind of up there with like the Deadpool kills the Marvel Universe type of story. But yeah, it looked really cool. We didn't mention it last week during Daredevil Born Again, but the finale. But Superman's theme was played in the finale. Spider-Man. And yeah, I mean, we know vigilantes are a huge part of New York. We know Spider-Man cannot be in this show. I guess we'll have to wait and see if that happens and they make deals, but huge absence, I will say that, especially when vigilantes in New York are being hunted by the mayor. The biggest one can't be used. But also in the Fantastic Four trailer, there was a quick nod to Timely Comics on a billboard or a signage of a building. Timely Comics was what Marvel Comics used to be before they changed their name. They even had the symbol of Timely Comics back in the day there as well. So yeah, Matt Fraction is writing a Fantastic Four comic book coming out right around the time of Fantastic Four First Steps. It's going to be set in the world. I'm not sure if it's a comic adaptation of the movie or just
it's
like
the first comic tie-in to any MCU film.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
I think it takes place right before. If I were to guess, it would take place right before the movie.
Yeah. But yeah, that's the cover art to it there. It looks really, really cool. We got the pictures of what the leader should have looked like in Captain America Brave New World. What they chose to do was ridiculous. I think this is more comic accurate. This is probably what they should have done, but for some reason they pivoted and did the weird brain looking.
They should have done like a combination of the two. But yeah, this looks way better.
It does look way better. And have you watched Captain America Brave New World yet?
Oh yeah. I saw the day it came out on streaming.
Okay, what'd you think of it?
It was all right.
Yeah. I thought
it was too late. It should have came out on the heels of the show. Like it should have came out like the next year. It just felt like it was too little, too late, and it felt kind of dated. But it was okay. Better than they said.
A lot of it was dated because it was a sequel to one of the oldest MCU movies still in canon. Yeah. And finally in news, Miles Catton. We want to talk about him because we're saying I don't know what his name is. He's a star of Sinners. Remember that name, Miles Catton. Caton. Remember that name because we're gonna know him a lot, probably in the years to come. But he's a huge comic book fan, and he put his feelers out to the MCU and says, "I want to play Miles Morales, his namesake, Miles. I want to play Miles Morales in Spider-Man in the MCU." He was great in Sinners. We talked about him. We talked about him last week. I don't know where they found him. If that's him singing, which I believe it is.
It was.
It was. Yeah, it was amazing. He did an incredible job.
He is very talented.
Very talented guy. Ryan Coogler did an amazing job finding him and bringing him in there. But that's it for the show this week. Next week, the beginning of the month, we do a show and tell. Dark Side of the Ring, episode 6, all about Eddie Gilbert. Do you know anything about Eddie Gilbert? I don't know.
A little bit. He was I believe he was the booker in ECW when that first started.
Okay.
So yeah, that should be an interesting one. I believe he killed himself.
Okay, that's great. That's a great story.
So
Mobland
nice uplifting.
5. Yeah, uplifting story. Mobland episode 5, Studio episode 7, Last of Us episode 3. See where that story goes. Celtic City finale. Looking forward to that.
Me too.
Coming out on Thursday night. I'm going to go see it. Thunderbolts. I'm going to review that. There's a lot of spoilers going out for that, which I'm not going to get into now, but we'll talk about it in full next week on Friday. The month of May, not a lot coming out in May. We got Final Destination kind of reboot. Final Destination Bloodlines coming out on the 16th. Apple TV, A Murder Robot. This is a movie starring Alexander Skarsgård. Trailer looked pretty good. Comes out on Apple TV. On the 23rd, Mission Impossible Final Reckoning. I need to watch the last couple of Mission Impossible movies before we get to that. Live action remake of Lilo and Stitch comes out that day. John Krasinski on Apple TV's starring in a show called Fountain of Youth, or movie. I'm not really sure what that is, but it looked really good. Reminded me of Indiana Jones. And on the 30th, Karate Kid Legends. Still have no idea what this is connected to, Cobra Kai or any of the Karate Kid before it.
Pretty sure it's just connected to the movies beforehand.
Okay, yeah, that's what it seemed like to me. But the year of Superman, and we're going to tackle the 1990s Superboy, Lois and Clark, The New Adventures of Superman, and The Death of Superman, and Return of Superman. The big phenomenon surrounding that. And The Road to Fantastic Four, Tim Story's first movie in 2005. We're going to tackle that. And I'd like to read Life Story this month. Okay. I do have that. I have it in hand now. So thank you, everyone, for watching, listening, wherever you get this in your ear holes. Thank you. And we will talk to you next week. Peace.
We're the Geek Blurb crew, here to enlighten you, talking all things geeky, from movies to wrestling to our podcast is the place where you wanna be for all the latest news and nostalgia from the 80s and 90s. We review comic book flicks and sci-fi hits, riding the wave of action movies with all the cool bits. From Iron Man to Star Wars, we cover it all. And when it comes to wrestling, we never drop the ball. Geek Blurb, we're the kings of the nerds, rating movies and pineapples, our opinions never blur. Join us each week for a geeky chat with the latest news and a dose of nostalgia that. So if you're a fan of the comic book craze, or a lover of sci-fi and all its maze, tune in to Geek Blurb, we're here to entertain.